Anyways, Rabbi Bayer, this week's Parsha, Parshas Vayeitzei, is a very powerful Parsha. Just like every Parsha, but there's something very unique with Parshas Vayeitzei. In Parshas Vayeitzei, there's no letter, there's no Samech and Pei. Meaning in every Parsha, whichever Parsha a person opens a Chumash, you see the letter Pei or Samech. Which Pei or Samech teaches us that Moshe Rabbeinu in Shemayim, when he was Mekabel the Torah, when he accepted the Torah, those were the stopping points where Moshe Rabbeinu was stopped and he reviewed whatever Hashem taught him. So in Parshas Vayeitzei, why isn't there any Samech and any Pei? There's no letter Samech and no letter Pei. So the answer is, it says in the Sifrei Chasidis, because Parshas Vayeitzei from beginning to end deals with the challenges that Yaakov Avinu went through. Over 20 years that he was in the house of Lavan, it was non-stop challenges. When it comes to challenges, don't stop. Meaning, don't stop thinking, why is it that I'm going through these challenges? Am I worse than everyone else? If a person starts to have these thoughts when it comes to challenges, it basically gets a person very, very off track. So when it comes to the challenges that we go through in life, we have to continuously just stay focused, stay on track, not looking back and not saying to ourselves, why is it? When it comes to Parshas Vayeitzei, there's no Samach and no Pei, which is a sign to stop and start thinking. Not over here. You go and you continue without stopping. But if we take Parshas Vayeitzei into a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation, if we take a moment and we think to ourselves, Yaakov Avinu, which we know is called Bechir Sheba Avos, he is the chosen one and the most chashiv of the three Avos, Hagdoshim. Something very unique takes place with Yaakov, which doesn't take place by Avram and by Yitzchak. Avram Avinu, at some point, Hashem tells him, Lech lecha me'artzecho mi'meladetcho me'beis avicha. Hashem says, leave your parents' house. Why? Chazal teach us, because over here you won't be zoichet to establish a Yiddish nation. Amongst Terach and all his the people and all the people behaving like Terach, you will not be able to establish Am Yisroel. Yitzchak was an oile temima. He didn't leave Eretz Yisrael even once. So Yitzchak Avinu was beyond. The Kala comes to Yitzchak. Basically, he stays his entire life in the Daled Amis, in the 4 Amis of his Tati Avram, in the Kedusha of Avram Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, his uniqueness, so to say, with his midah of Teferes, with his balanced midah of Teferes, Hashem trusted him to be far from his father, far from his mishpacha, from his family, and not only far from his mishpacha, to be in a house of Lavan, and to be able to establish a nation, to have the shvatim, the shiftei ka, the Heli Gabbas should be born in such a tumid place. That was only Yaakov Avinu. He was able to establish a nation, and a Kedusha Diga nation, an Am Yisroel Diga nation, a Shiftei Ka Diga nation, even amongst Lavan and Lavan's people who were Me'rosham Vat Kadam, they were from head to toe, they were Ashtik Tuma. He was able to stay who he was, to not be influenced by the people surrounding him. That is Yaakov Avinu, and this is Parshas Vayeitzei. One of the most very important lessons that we learn in Parshas Vayeitzei is stay strong, as the Rambam says, Maisa Ovoi Simon Lebonim. Yaakov Avinu, with him leaving Tati and Zaydis Kedusha Diga home, It's hinting Yiddish Kinderlach will in a certain time in during the Yiddish history will have to leave the home of the Beis Hamikdash. We will be thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. We will be thrown away from the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash. And Yaakov Avinu says that Ramban, he said us. He basically he was the one who established this koyach. That even though we're so far of the Mokum HaMikdash, we're so far of certain Kedushas, we could still stay strong and we won't be influenced by the surrounding Tumah that surrounds us. That is who Yaakov Avinu is. And this is basically what the Rambam teaches us, what Yaakov Avinu is basically teaching us and establishing. Getting in a little bit deeper into this concept, Rashi, in the beginning of this week's Parsha, Rashi says a very famous, powerful Rashi. Why is it, says Rashi, that the Torah says again, Vayeitzei Yaakov left from Be'eshava Vayelech Harana. In the end of last week's Parsha, it says already that Yaakov left his father's home and he went, as it says in Pasuk Hey, last Parsha, it says that he was sent. His tati sent him away to go to Lavan. Why does it have to say again Vayeitzei Yaakov? Famous Rashi. Rashi says the Torah teaches us Yitzias Tzaddik min hamakom oisiroshem. When a Tzaddik leaves a place, there is an impression that's left. Pona hoida, pona ziva, pona adora. Meaning, when the Tzaddik is in a place, when a Tzaddik who's a kadosh, who's a Heli Gabbas person, is in a certain place, that place, because of the tzaddik, envelops kedusha. When the tzaddik leaves, that's when the kedusha goes down, and obviously the kedusha is not on the same level. Says Rashi, Vayeitzei Yaakov. Yaakov left, meaning it was felt. It was felt in a very deep way that Yaakov Avinu left Be'er Shava. But it says from the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, explaining this concept that a tzaddik, wherever he is, it makes a roshim, it leaves an impression. The Chassidish Svarim teach it from two different perspectives. One perspective, that even when a tzaddik goes away from a certain place, that place, the kedusha that the tzaddik brought with him while the tzaddik was there, it stays, it's nitzchi, meaning it's a everlasting thing which cannot be taken away. And if a person has the sensitivity to tap in to this very special, unique kedusha that was left because of the tzaddik, he will feel that this place is a place that a person has more potentials to steig and to become closer to Hashem. Why? Because there was once a tzaddik in this place. The Komarno Rebbe, Rabbi Isaac of Komarno, once was on the way and he had to stop in an inn. And the person that the inn belonged to was a Yid. And he showed him to a room where he'll be able to stay. And Rabbi Isaac, obviously, Rabbi Isaac of Komarno, who was the Sar Beis HaZoyer, was a very, very heilige Yid. He was known as the Sar Beis HaZoyer. He, with his Kabbalah that he knew, he was there and he felt something very special in this place. He was able to daven better when he davened. He was able to learn better. His learning went much better. And he was like, why is it? So he went over to this owner of the inn and he asked the owner of the inn, why is it that I feel something very special in this place? So the owner of the inn told him, this inn belonged to my grandfather. My grandfather had this inn. And when he had the inn, once Reb Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev came to this inn. So that Reb Isaac the Komarno, and he davened, he stayed in the same room that you stayed. So Reb Isaac understood, why is it that he feels that he is able to learn better and daven better and serve Hashem better? Is because the Baditchever of the Heli Gabbas Ayen ben Sarisasha was once there many years before. But then the owner of the inn said, but I'll add to this. He said, not only that my Zaidi had this inn, he got it from his grandfather, and his grandfather was once Zoiche to have the Baal Shem Tov staying in this inn. And when Rabbi Yitzchak came to the inn, he said he feels some very special kedusha. Why? Because the Baal Shem Tov was once in this inn. So we see a place where tzaddikim are. It's an everlasting impression that these tzaddikim live in a place that they were. From a different perspective, it says in the Chassidish Svarim that this idea of pana hoide pana ziva, a very interesting idea. We all know, and this is what I began this year with, we have our places that we feel connected. We have our places that we feel that we're able to connect through davening, to connect through learning, whatever it is. And sometimes, for whatever reason, Hashem doesn't want us to be in those places. Hashem sends us in different places. In those places, we have the bechira, the will, the free will, to either establish that this place should also become a kedusha place. Through my being, to be mamshich, it's called mamshich, to pull kedusha to this place, or chas v'shalom, to be influenced by other people. Yaakov Avinu is teaching us in this parsha, pana hoida pana ziva means, pana could also be it turned, meaning he turned the ziva, this beauty, this hoida, this glorious feeling that he had in his father's home with Yitzchak, and he took it with him wherever he went. Which means that he was mamshich the kedusha that he had in his father Yitzchak's house, and he brought it with him to whatever place he was. And yes, he was able to bring it into Lavan's house. He was able to be mamshich this kedusha, even though he was surrounded by Lavan, and he was able to establish the Heli Gabbas, the Shvatim Akdoshim, within a place of Tumah, different than we find by Avram and Yitzchak, which this koyach they didn't have. But as the Rambam says, once Yaakov Avinu established this koyach, all of us, Am Yisroel, we have this koyach to be able to be mamshech kedusha, to take kedusha with us wherever we are, and to spread the light, so to say, and not be influenced by others, rather to influence others to become better people, to connect to the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Torah says, Yaakov Avinu vayivga b'makom, he met with a place. Famous Rashi, what is this vayivga b'makom, he met with a place? As it says in the Mefarshim, usually two people meet. Each person comes from a different direction, and each one meets each other. You meet. Why is it that Yaakov met with a place? A place is usually, it's established. It's in one place. So how do you meet with a place? So listen, a beautiful explanation. Rashi says that Yaakov Avinu, he passed the Mokem HaMikdash, he passed Har HaMoriah, and he reminded himself that he didn't go and daven on Har HaMoriah. Even though he was further away, what happened? The Har HaMoriah, the mountain Moriah, came towards him, and that's when he davened. So Vayifka, because yes, the place came towards him, because there was the mountain was Nekar Mim Koima, it moved away from its place, and it came towards Yaakov. Yaakov Avinu, that moment, Yaakov Avinu learned a very deep lesson. He says, wow, look what just happened. Where I'm standing shouldn't be Har HaMoriah, because I was standing far away from Har HaMoriah. The Har HaMoriah came to me. Now this place established an amazing level of Kedusha, because the Mokem HaMikdash came to me. So Yaakov says, wow, I could do the same thing. Just like the Mahara Maria came here, even though it's not the place where the Hara Maria should have been, and therefore it became Kadosh, it became a Heli Gabbas place. This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to teach my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to the end at Saf Kol Adoris, that we could be Malabish Kedusha, we could bring Kedusha to places that really there's no Kedusha. What is Yaakov Avinu starting for the first time? What did Yaakov Avinu do over there? He davened Tfilas Ma'ariv. He was the first one to come up with a Ma'ariv Tfilah. What is Tfilas Ma'ariv? It says Tfilas Ma'ariv is Rishus. It's not an obligation. It's not a chiyuv. It's a Rishus. It's voluntary. Why? So let me tell you what the Zohar HaKadosh says. The Zohar HaKadosh says, Tfilas Ma'ariv, Yaakov established in the dark moments when a person goes through darkness. Ma'ariv is at night. Shachris is day. Mincha is also day. Tfilas Ma'ariv is at night. When we go through our dark moments, when we go through the moments that it seems like everything is going in the opposite direction, this is the time. Stand still. Don't give up. Daven to Hashem. Yaakov Avinu running away from his brother, his twin brother Esav. His brother wants to kill him. He has to leave his beloved father's house. And he knows he's going to this Lavan or Harami. The Harami, this famous faker that people were afraid of. And what is he doing? He is now coming up with Ma'ariv. Because this is what Ma'ariv is all about. In those moments of darkness, stay strong. Scream Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. V'ohavtas Hashem Elokecha. Don't give up in those dark moments. That's why, says the Zohar HaKadosh, Ma'ariv is Rishus. Why? He says, these evil spirits, they want to get us. The more we are obligated to do something, they want to get us even more. We know that there is a very famous idea in Chazal, Godel HaMetzuva V'Oisa. A person who is mitzvah, he is obligated to do a mitzvah. It's a bigger Hashem. When a person is mitzvah V'Oisa, it's a bigger madrega when you're obligated to do, when you have an obligation, it's bigger than when a person doesn't have. Why? Because when a person is obligated to do something, there's the tzaddik keneged fighting with us that wants to push us away. Yaakov Avinu knew there'll be times and moments that a person will not have koyach to overcome this tzaddik keneged, this evil powers that wants to come against us. What did Yaakov do? He established a tefillah at night in the darkness. But he established it as a rishus. It's not an obligation. If you want, you do it, or not, you don't do it. So therefore, there is no pushback from the evil spirits to keep us back from doing this Ma'ariv. In any case, Ma'ariv was established for us in these dark moments. Let's take this idea of Yaakov Avinu being in a very challenged place and yet making the best out of the challenges and establishing a Yiddish nation with this Aziz de Kedusha and with not being afraid of anything and not being influenced by any surroundings. There's a very interesting Rashi. Rashi says, Yaakov Avinu says, when Yaakov Avinu, when he fell asleep and he saw this dream that he had, he saw the ladder which was on the ground reaching Shemayim, and he saw the malachim going up and down, And he was like, wow. And he not only that he saw only malachim, it says in the Medrash, he saw all the tzoros, all this pain that his children will go through, and all the golosim, and all the exiles Yaakov Avinu was able to see in this dream. So it was a phenomenal dream. It was a powerful dream. And then he wakes up and he says, if I would have known, I wouldn't have gone to sleep. If I would have known, Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnasoi, Yesh Hashem b'mokem hazeh v'anoichi lo yidati, says Rashi, I didn't know that it's such a powerful place. If I would have known that it's such an awesome place, I wouldn't have gone to sleep. So the question is, if he wouldn't have gone to sleep, he wouldn't have had this prophecy, this nevuah, that he was able to see all these powerful things that will happen to his children. So why is he saying, why is, according to Rashi, Yaakov saying, I wouldn't have gone to sleep? So the Rechaim HaKodesh says, you know what Yaakov Avinu meant to say? I would have prepared myself. I would have made the right preparation to have Hashem coming to me when I'm awake, which is way more powerful. If I would have known beforehand, I wouldn't have just fallen asleep and fallen into this prophecy within my dream. I would have prepared myself. If I would have known how special this place is, and with preparation, with proper preparation, Hashem would have revealed himself openly. The son of the Heli Gabbas Ayen Rebbe asks, I don't understand. Yaakov Avinu, he's basically, according to the Rechaim HaKodesh, saying that if it would have happened another way, it would have been better. How do we understand this? If this is what Hashem wanted, what is this if it would have been better? So the son of the Baditchev Rav says a fascinating, mind-boggling thing. He says like this. He says, listen, Hashem, no, he asks a little different. He says, if Nevuah would have been a better way without sleep, why didn't Hashem get Yaakov to stay awake and that Yaakov should make the preparation? So he said like this. He says, the Rebbeinu Shalom knew there'll be times in history when Yidden will not be able, we will not have our cup, our seichel to prepare ourselves for mitzvahs. We will fall into mitzvahs. And Hashem wanted Yaakov to dafke not be prepared and have this in a dream. And this will be, this through Yaakov Avinu not being prepared and having this dream with unprepared, not prepared, it will give the koyach, the strength for the generations to come to be able to connect to Hashem, even in moments that we don't have the seichel, the cup, to prepare ourselves for mitzvahs. We will still be able to do the mitzvah to whatever level we're able to do it. And this is what was established now when Yaakov Avinu did not prepare himself and he had this dream. For one moment, for a minute or two, let's stop with this sulam. The ladder was mutzav arza, standing on the ground, v'roishoy megia shemayim, and its top was reaching the shemayim. What is this teaching us? Obviously, there's so many deep things going on over here. But the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh says, if you take the word sulam and you add together all the letters, the total of all the letters is 136. Says the Baal Shem Tov. Take the word koil, voice. The word koil is also 136. Take the word soim, fasting, tzadi, vav, endemem, it's also 136. Take the word mamai, it's also 136. Soim, koil, mamai, all these three words, soim, which is fasting, is 136. Koil, which is your voice, is 136. And mamai is 136. He says, this is Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. We could serve Hashem, and yet we could chas v'shalom be down, down, down. In the same time, we could elevate ourselves through Torah, through tshuva, which is koil. Koil means tshuva, serving Hashem with a voice, which is avodah. which is tefillah. Tzoim is fasting, tshuva. Koil is actually Torah, learning, saying with your voice Torah. Mammon is doing tzedakah. We could either chas v'shalom with all these three things, with our voices, we can chas v'shalom go very down, in a very practical way. As we know, the people who have beautiful voices, we know that the shar to Gan Eden, the shar of Negina, the gate of singing is very close to either Gehenim and Gan Eden. A person could be elevated through Negina. A person could become very uplifted through Negina, through his voice, coil through his voice. And chas v'shalom, a person could go very down. Same thing, Tzoim, fasting could be a very unhealthy thing. If a person keeps on fasting, it could ruin the whole person's body. A person could chas v'shalom fall apart. If a person does it in a good way, it could bring him closer to Hashem. Mamay, if a person does tzedakah with his money, if a person does good deeds with his money, the money will elevate him very high. If chas v'shalom, a person does not good things with money, the chas v'shalom money could bring a person down. It says the Baal Shem Tov, Yaakov Avinu saw in this dream that Sulam, all these three things of Tzoim, Koil, Mamoin, it's mutzav arza. It could be very low. But it could bring us up very, very high. We could become very, very high and close to Hashem through all these three things. And these, coming back to what I said before, these things Yaakov Avinu knew how to use on the highest level possible. He knew how to connect through Tzoim, Koil, and Mamoy to Hashem, even though he was surrounded by wicked people, evil people, dominant people. He was able to establish the Heli Yiddish nation. Two more things before finishing this year. As I mentioned earlier in this year, Yaakov Avinu was able to be mamshech. He was able to bring kedusha with him. In other words, he brought the kedusha of Eretz Yisrael in Chutz La'aretz. As the Belzerov explains, that Yaakov Avinu, he was the one who was the first person, as us Yidden, as a Yiddish nation, that took Kedushas Artzeinu Agdosha, the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, which he embodied in him all the years that he was Zoichet to be with his father Yitzchak in Eretz Yisrael. He now took with him and he established Eretz Yisrael around himself. Wherever he was a mini Eretz Yisrael, a mini Beis HaMikdash. Wherever he was a Mokum of Kedusha. Now, a very interesting Belzerov. Rashi says, this is one last thing before I say one more thing. Rashi says like this. Yaakov Avinu said, I didn't know this is such a heilige place. And he says, V'zeh Shara, in Pasuk Yud Zayin, he says, Vayiro, he was afraid. Vayoyim, he said, Manoida, how awesome. Mamokim hazeh, ein zeh kim beis Elokim, it's a heilige place, a place of Hashem. There's a Shara Shemoyim. This is the gates to Shemayim. Rashi says, Shebeis HaMikdash shel Mala, the Beis HaMikdash on top in Shemayim, Mechuvan, is exactly the same place. Keneged Beis HaMikdash shel Mata, it's basically in the same place like the Beis HaMikdash shel Mata. In Parshas B'Shalach, by the Shira, Rashi says the same thing, but Rashi says the other way around. Rashi says, Shebeis HaMikdash shel Mata, the Beis HaMikdash over here is mechuven, is exactly just face to face to the Beis HaMikdash shel Mala. Why over here does Rashi mention the Beis HaMikdash shel Mala first, and then the Beis HaMikdash shel Mata, and then the Beis HaMikdash over here? Listen to what the Belzerov says. Says the Belzerov, what happened with Yaakov Avinu? Yaakov Avinu, in his schus, the Beis HaMikdash, the Makam HaMikdash came towards him. Which means, in other words, like I said before, The place that Yaakov wasn't the real Beis Hamikdash place. But Yaakov was able to be mamshech. He was able to pull the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash to him, and now the Mokem Hamikdash was in a different place. Listen to this. Says the Belzerov. You know what else happened? When the Beis Hamikdash, the Mokem Hamikdash came towards Yaakov, in Shamayim, the Mokem Hamikdash also moved. So it should be exactly where Yaakov was standing. Says the Belzerov, Shebeis Hamikdash Shel Ma'ala, the upper Beis Hamikdash moved to be mechuvan to the Beis Hamikdash Shel Mata. In other words, Yaakov Avinu was able not only to pull the kedusha of Har HaMeiri of the Beis Hamikdash here on planet Earth, he was able to do the same in Shemayim, to pull the kedusha of the Mokem Hamikdash towards where he was standing. Just to end with one more amazing idea. Now, obviously, with all that I said, we didn't even touch the tiny bit of what was going on with Yaakov and Lavan and everything. But we find something very, very interesting. Yaakov Avinu had so many different times that he could have been upset on Lavan. Lavan gave him, instead of Rachel, he gave Leah. Lavan, he told him he'll give him his wife, and after, working for 7 years, which is the same idea, but working for 7 years, he tricked him. Yaakov could have been so upset. Yaakov the whole time stayed very calm. Not one time did he get in an argument with Lavan. After the 7 years, Yaakov Avinu said, at the end of the day, my beloved father-in-law, I worked for Rachel, not for Leah. This is not fair. It's not fair. He didn't say it in an argument way. He just said it's not fair. And then Lavan said, okay, I'll give you Rachel as well. But he didn't argue. By the end of the Parsha, the only time we find Vayorev Yaakov im Lavan, it says Vayorev Yaakov im Lavan. This is in Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk. I'm trying to find it, but it's Pasuk Lamed Vav. It says Vayichal Yaakov. Yaakov was very upset. He was angry. Vayorev Lavan. He was arguing with Lavan. It was like fighting. And he said, "Why is it that you chased me all these years? I did everything for you. 20 years that I didn't have a normal sleep. I gave away my sleep. And this is what you're doing now to me?" He said, if not for Hashem, you wouldn't have sent me away with money. I would have come home like a poor man. Why now is Yaakov becoming upset? Listen, Mamish, one more minute. Lavan tells Yaakov, a few psukim before that, he tells to Yaakov words that were divrei kfira. Basically, he was saying words that Yaakov Avinu felt that on this is no negotiable. On this he has to argue. What is it that Lavan says? Lavan said like this. When Lavan chased Yaakov and he reached Yaakov and his children, he said like this: I have the power in my hand to do harm for you. But Hashem told me I shouldn't do any harm. He's contradicting himself. Lavan is saying, I can do harm to you, but Hashem told me not to. This doesn't make any sense. If Hashem says not to, how can he do harm? The answer is Lavan was talking divrei kfira. He said, I would have been able to chas v'sholem negotiate with Hashem and get you to be harmed. You're right. Hashem told me not to. But I would have been able to do something. That was divrei kfira that Yaakov Avinu felt, saying that he would have been able to do otherwise than what Hashem told him. Yaakov felt when it comes to kfira, he has to step up and he has to say, no, Lavan, this is something that I'm not buying. Why? Because his children were there. He felt for the chinuch of his children that it should go into their ear. Hearing words from their Zaidi, things that are not appropriate, the damage would be enormous, and he felt he has to right away attack it, and he had to do it in a very strict way, in order for his children not to be affected. So Hashem should help. We should be zoiche. This week, Tuesday, is the yahrzeit of the Heli Gabbas Ayen, which so many Yidden were helped with so many yeshuos in the past, with shidduchim, with gesund, with parnassah, with children. We should be zoiche in the schus of the Heli Gabbas Ayen, of the Bas Ayen, Rabbi Avram Doiv ben Reb David, which is yahrzeit, like I said, is next Tuesday. We should be zoiche to bona, chayim, mezoyne, reviche, shidduchim, good to shidduchim. We should be able to learn from Yaakov Avinu and to be able to stay strong with all our challenges that come our way. We should be zoiche to be as Mashiach Tzidkenu